You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Today I want to talk about life. I want to talk about the concept of life as it is an allegory, the hidden meanings, the spiritual journey, the symbolic figures and actions and imagery that take place in our daily life. And I think oftentimes we can fall into a lull of not seeing some of the most amazing things, understanding what's really truly happening, and seeing the tiny miracles or the large miracles that appear in our life. Throughout all of our lifetimes, we have ups and downs, peaks and valleys. We have things that we've done that we are proud of, things that we've done that we might be ashamed of or regret doing. You know, I feel that most of us come through a path that begins as we are children. We are born in the womb, and we are very young children, and we see the world through eyes of a child. We see things as being huge and amazing and beautiful and all those things that we see as a child because things are so much bigger than we are. A good example is my dad recently went back up north to a house that we lived in when I was a child. I was very young then. I was probably like 2 or 3 years old. And it was funny because even he said, and he was an adult, he even said, man, that house seemed a lot bigger back when we lived there, and it seemed a lot smaller now. And it was funny because when I was looking at the pictures, I remember that house being gigantic. And it's a beautiful house, but it's not that big. But the way we see things change. The way that we envision things throughout our life changes. And for many of us, I think for many of us, we have some tough times. We have to overcome personal issues. We have to overcome outside issues, family dynamic problems, things that we never thought we'd have to deal with when we were born. You know, it's interesting, our life has these peaks and valleys. I like to see it as imagery if we can kind of consider like some railroad tracks. Which direction are you going to go? And you can change directions at any time. But for many of us, we have to go down a path, and that path begins at some level somewhere. And eventually we continue to walk down that path. Some of us run, some of us jog, some of us run down that path screaming and yelling at the top of our lungs. Other of us might feel like we're on the sidelines watching everybody else live their life. And eventually we have that aha moment where we realize that we have to take our life into our own hands. But I feel that for a lot of us, because we have to go through various issues, it can take us off course from who we truly are. And I believe that we are the truest when we were born. We were children because we didn't have anything at that time affecting us or making us feel a certain way about ourselves or making us second guess who we are or making us not as confident or worried that we're going to fit in. Think about it. I mean, even in elementary school, you compared yourself to other kids. They might have been more talented as far as they could run faster. Maybe they seemed smarter in the classroom. Maybe they were liked more by their teachers. And it's very interesting because we begin to come up with a theory on who we truly are, how good we are, how bad we are, what we stink at, what we're good at. And most of the time, we're very hard on ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves that these difficulties turn into life projections. And what I mean by that is that we oftentimes have to go through many years of our life searching, looking, getting lost, eventually being found, and then having that realization moment that we're truly worth it, that we truly have value. But I feel that the trials and tribulations that we go through, for some of us, can be huge. And I don't think that you can define your trial and tribulation versus someone else's trial and tribulation, because I believe that we are given, or we deal with the things in our life that we are supposed to deal with. And what I mean by that is I feel this is just a idea, a good theory, really. The theory is that before we come into this lifetime, we are spiritual beings that believe that we need to learn specific life lessons, certain things that we haven't really quite mastered yet. And I think that one of those mastering things, and maybe the top mastery really, is to love thyself for everything, for every part, for everything about the self, to accept ourselves and to love ourselves. And I think the second part of that mastery is for us to love all others, all other living things, animals, plants, you name it. But in order to love, right, others genuinely, not just I care about you, or I miss you, or you're so great, or I miss your face, or whatever. None of that. Until we honestly love ourselves. And what does that mean? It's not some sort of egotistical love. It's not some sort of, oh my God, you're the most beautiful person in the world. Oh my God, Ashley, I'm looking at mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all? No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is honestly accepting the things that we find faults in ourselves. And the weirdest thing about the faults that we find are usually not faults at all, right? They are assumptions or assessments, precarious, odd little things that we've considered that we should judge ourselves based on that. We have a tendency of judging ourselves, and we keep that judgment intact, most of us, for the large amount of our life. It's not until we get to the point where we go, God, I thought there was more to this. I thought there were more options in life. I thought that I was going to reap the benefits more. I thought that I was going to connect more. I thought that I was going to have a better life. And it's not until we begin to realize that it's not the outside world that's screwing us over. It's ourselves. It's ourselves. Think about it. In almost every situation, when we get ourselves into a precarious situation, what had to happen? What had to happen? And you're like, what had to happen? Well, you know what? What had to have happened, right, is that we made a decision. We made a decision to be there, to accept that, to not accept that, to show up, to not show up. We made a decision. And that decision, no matter how we consider how big or how small that decision is, that decision pivots us. It pivots us into a situation, into a life situation, into a life path. And based on those decisions, when we take many decisions and we keep adding to that. So we make one decision one day. Let's say like we make a decision that we're not going to pick up the phone. Let's just say something small. And then we get asked to go to an event and we say we're not going to go, or we don't respond. And we keep going on that. We're kind of living on the sidelines. Our life becomes a sideline type of life, right? It's very similar to a simulation when you're living a life where we find ourselves in a lot of struggles and not good situations. And let me give you an example of that. When we keep making the wrong decisions, choosing the not perfect people to hang out with, making decisions that aren't good for our well-being, choosing to have the 10th drink, choosing to allow people around us that we don't really know that well, that might not have what's right for us at heart, choosing to make decisions that can get us in trouble with the law, choosing to make decisions that will hurt us. And oftentimes I find that we begin to make these choices, and yes, birds of a feather do flock together, but why did we get into that group in the first place? Well, we weren't happy with ourselves. We didn't have the direction that we needed. We might have even felt pretty sad at that time about whatever was going on in our life and just wanted to have some sort of escape. And I find often when I work with kids, in high school and college level, they're looking for an escape. And I explain that, yes, we can all escape on drugs or alcohol or pharmaceutical medications or all three wrapped up into one. We can escape with a lot of drama in our life. We can escape in a not good, negative relationship. We can escape with a sex addiction or addiction like that makes us feel better. But does it really make us feel better in the long run? Or are we avoiding the real problems? When I return, I'll be talking more about this journey, this life allegory, the reason for why we're here. And I'm going to share with you something that most people don't know. Before the end of the show, you're going to hear something that's going to change your life profoundly forever. Stay tuned, because Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back this time. Be back this time in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Tonight I'm talking about life, the allegory that is life, the hidden meanings, the spiritual journey, the many paths we might take, the many turnarounds and circles we might make. Our life is really amazing when we actually realize how amazing it truly is. Oftentimes, we can overlook that amazement out of stress, anxiety, depression, the unknown. What's happening to me? And what am I supposed to be doing with my life? And why am I here? And I figured that there's 2 things in mastery in this lifetime that almost all of us, I think maybe most if not all of us actually, are here to learn. We're here to learn how to love ourselves for everything, how to completely accept ourselves, and how to love ourselves, how to not mistreat ourselves, how to make the right choices for our well-being that produces us as the best human we can be possible. Not outdoing everybody, but to be as good as we can be. To be the best we can be. The purest at heart, the purest in mind. To share with others, to help them, to show them by example. The second part to that mastery is to love all other things, all animals, all humans, all plants. To understand that matter is energy. And to understand that the direct relation of how we feel and what we demonstrate directly relates to how we are. To understand that once we love and accept ourselves, being tolerant, loving and understanding of others is the next step to our understanding our specific duty and virtue. And once we make that decision and accept that in our life changes. But until then, we walk down the wrong path. We walk down dark paths, paths with no light, feeling as though there is no light at the end of that tunnel, feeling overwhelmed, feeling unsuccessful. And oftentimes these things in our life happen, whether we choose the wrong group of people to spend time with who influence us as much as we influence ourselves to do drugs, alcohol, pharmaceutical medication, to find escapes, even drama. And sex is an escape. And to realize that we can use those escapes to escape our reality because we don't want to deal with what's at hand. But as we keep pushing it out, we keep getting older. And the last thing we want in our life is tons and tons of regret. So how do we move from childhood into a part of questioning ourselves? And how do we move from the basement to the rooftop deck? How do we move our life so that we move productively into a process and a place in our life that we are happy, that we've ruled out all addictions, that we've realized that we mean more to us than any substance or any drama? And it takes this form of love for ourselves to embrace to get to that point, because we cannot stop all the other stuff until we realize that there's a need and a reason to stop. Does that make sense? We can't stop all the other stuff until we know that that stuff has gotten in the way of our life. And how do we begin to know that? When we know that we're better than that. When we realize that we're doing ourselves a disservice by doing it. And when we begin to realize that we have a higher self that's inside of us, that every day we drink too much, and every day we take drugs, or every day we pop another pill to not feel it, to feel numb, that we're killing and imprisoning our higher self. Haven't you ever thought that you had the right idea? Haven't you ever thought that you knew what was right, but you went against it? How did you feel when you went against what you knew what was right? Think about when you went to go hang out with the wrong people at the time. And as you got closer and closer to where you were meeting them, you felt less well. You begin to feel anxious, a little stressed out, a little overwhelmed. Maybe your heart starts beating a little faster and you feel like not very good butterflies in your stomach. And as you push yourself to go meet with these folks, when you get there, you know it. You know it. But what do? We just conform. We accept it. We go with the flow. And as we go with the flow, we eventually have to come back to center. But some of us have to go a long way to come back. Some of us are able to figure it out. We've learned hard way, but we didn't have to hit rock bottom. And some of us had to hit a consideration of rock bottom. And what does rock bottom mean? Rock bottom means that there is nowhere else to go. You can't escape any longer. You know that there's nothing that's going to work to escape, and you get to the point where you realize it's time. It's time for me to step up to life's plate and do what I'm here to do. But what is it that I'm here to do? We might know that there's a higher calling, a higher being, that there's something larger than we could ever be, but how do we figure out what our specific calling is? How do we figure out what our specific calling is? Some call it a purpose. And how do we define that unique purpose? And how do we begin to go down that specific path? I realize that oftentimes as we carry around burdens in our life, symbolic of a backpack that we carry with us that is really, really heavy, that holds us back, makes it slower to move. And with that burden, we carry that burden everywhere. We carry that burden into every relationship, every opportunity. We take that burden with us, no matter what. We make decisions in our life based on that burden, based on those burdens, based on those negative judgments of self, based on the things that we know we can't do, not what we can, and based on the stuff that we find to be weird about us. Weird. The things that we feel are not at its best, the things that we don't fit in with, the things that make us stand out in what we consider a bad way. What are those things that make you feel as though you stand out? What are those things that you wish was more mainstream normal? What are those things? What is that thing that you wish you had? I realize that the thing that we wish that we fit in, that thing that we wish we had to fit in more, there's a clue. There's a distinct clue when it comes to our life. And I've realized that we're given this clue. And it's those things that we don't fit in right with. It's the things that make us stand out in a crowd, and at the time, throughout our life, we hate them. We can't stand those characteristics about ourselves. It's difficult, and it's different, and it makes us not feel as though we fit in. And for our whole life, we've run around on this journey, carrying our burden, hoping to fit in, when it's not until we allow ourselves to let go of our burden, to take it off our back, to unshackle us, to realize, to forgive ourselves, to forgive the past, to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to know that we are better than what we carry around in a negative sack on our back. When we begin to realize that, when we begin to realize that our faults and our failures from the past do not define who we are, to realize that we don't have to fit in anymore, that's when our life changes. Check out ashleyburgess.com, ashleyburgess.com, the website, and check out the latest shows and blogs. Stay tuned, because Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, be back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. We've been talking about life as an allegory, the hidden meanings, the spiritual journey, why we're here. We talked about what we master, what we have to master to get to that next level, to let go of that bag of burden that we carry on our backs day in and day out. To realize that there comes a time to forgive ourselves, to forgive the folks that have hurt us, and to realize that when we hold that burden, we're really holding something against ourselves. To realize that every time we hold that burden and all the negative stuff that happened to us in the past, we define our life by that, but we also make decisions in our life based upon that burden. And it's not until we forgive the past and forgive our involvement in it are we able to move on. And the only reason that we're willing to forgive that is to know that we're better than that. To know that if we don't forgive and let go, that we really, truly can't move on. What we allow to hold ourselves down is us. We did it. We created it. We filled the bag of burden. We filled it to hold us down, to make us feel bad, to put a roadblock up against us and our success. Because why? Because we're not worthy of being successful. We're not worthy of being happy. We're not worthy of feeling joy. Isn't that what it is? Because we're holding that as ransom against ourselves. We're holding that as ransom. We've become our own judge, jury, and executioner because we can't see the forest through the trees. We make judgment calls on ourselves on a daily basis, and we can't realize the value that we truly have. We have a value that's immeasurable. We have a value that is unique and honest and loving. That when we find that unique and loving value, we get it. We figure it out. We stop on those tracks, those railroad tracks of life, and we look and we allow and realize that burden is heavy. And I've been carrying around this for a long, long, long time. And it's time to let it go. And as we let the burden go, it's almost like a mourning process. It's almost like a mourning process, mourning somebody's death, because we're letting go a part of our life that happened in the past that was holding us back. And we figured it out, and we've realized how to not redo those same things again. We learn from what we did. And that's worth its weight in gold. As we put that burden down, we begin to realize our value. And right then, you begin to understand the things about yourself that you judge so negatively. And there's one or two or three things that all of us have that are quite unique, valuable, really, worth more than diamonds. And most of these little diamonds in the rough, they're brilliant diamonds we have overlooked or hidden or hated our entire life. And I want to give you an example of one of those diamonds in the rough, because I believe that you are owed this information. And I believe that you're already onto this information. But a reminder helps us all. The reminder that we have a unique purpose, and that unique purpose connects with something else about you. That unique purpose, that purpose in your life connects with something about you that only you possess. Let me repeat that. There is something about you that only you can possess at that level that you have it, that converts and conjoins and comes with purpose. And what I mean by that is you have a unique quality that other people cannot even shine a light to, because they have their own unique quality that's different from yours. And that's what's so great about it. But that quality of yours, there could be several. There could be 10, 15, 20. There could be 2 or 3 just really solid things that converge and literally intersect with your unique purpose. And without that thing about you, that je ne sais quoi, that thing that you can't stand about yourself normally. It's funny how this all works out, isn't it? When we begin to realize that and begin to cultivate and master and craft that thing, we're then able to understand not only are we loving and accepting ourselves for everything, even the things that we don't love about ourselves because we don't fit in, but we're also beginning to take it a step further and saying, wait a second, there's more to this than meets the eye. As a child, I was born into a family. I had a mom and dad, and they are still alive, and that's amazing, and I appreciate them every day. And my family was, crazy as all of ours. There were ups and downs, good things and bad things, challenges and stress, happiness and sadness. But I remember as I was growing up and I was in elementary school, I began to realize there were certain things about me that were different than the other kids. And as I grew up, there were certain things about me that I wished were different. Why can't I be more like her? Why can't I look more like her? But better yet, why can't I sound more like her or her or her or her? And I began to see the unique qualities that I had as being wrong. They weren't what I wanted. It wasn't the way I wanted it. I wanted it to be so different. I wanted to have that voice. I wanted to have that high-pitched, cute cheerleader voice that so many of my friends in school had. I begged and pleaded, and I would pray at night, God, please, please. And I would call my friends and I would try to change my voice on the phone and they would go, "Oh, Ashley, that was a good job. It was a really good try." And that was in elementary school. And as I went through the years and I finally got to college, I remember the very first time I ever got a compliment on my voice in my entire life. The very first compliment. I can remember it to this day. And this guy was a friend of mine, and he said, "Hey, you have the greatest voice ever. I just think it's amazing." And I looked at him, and I was going to start a fight. The gloves were coming off. How dare somebody make fun of me? That's so mean. And all I could think was that he was making fun of me, and he was going to make fun of my voice to my face. Because I had been making fun of myself for my whole lifetime. I had been belittling myself. And so the way that I heard his comment was that he was making fun of me. And I remember I looked back at him and I probably gave him that certain eye look that oftentimes we give people when we are about to start something. And he looked at me and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I can't believe you would literally make fun of my voice to my face like that. I mean, at least you could talk behind my back or something, but really, I mean, that's just so mean." And he looked at me so perplexed and I didn't understand. And he was like, "I don't understand." And he looked at me and he said, I don't think you understand. I'm giving you a compliment." And he said, "Your voice cuts through the BS. The way that you sound rings true, and I can hear you, and you're very honest and authentic, and there's just something about that. And it radiates strength, and it's amazing. And I just feel that if you have a really amazing thing to do in your life, and you're going to be able to make this happen when you're doing the right thing." And I remember I sat there and I listened, and later on, I mean, I might have had a few tears later, and we hugged, but it's interesting how we can see and hear things differently when we judge ourselves on what's not normal. And I remember after that night, I began to think, why would I be given this voice? Why would I be given this sound? And why was I given the thoughts that I had being in debate and going through the process and all this of why? And then I began to realize there was something that I was destined to do. But it didn't come easy, because when you realize that you have a destiny and a calling, you begin to want to avoid that destiny and calling at all costs. You begin to want to avoid responsibility, because guess what? You know you have it. Stay tuned. I return to be talking more about life's journey, more about our walk through life, and how eventually we get to the exact place that we need to be. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. Be back this time in 2 shakes.
You could be my luck. Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. We've been talking about life, the hidden meaning, the spiritual journey, the actions, and the things that we do in our life to create this amazing voyage. We're here for a reason. We're here for a purpose. We're here to master love and to love ourselves, accept others, and love them as well. We're here to see things in all its glory. It's up to us to create a life worth living. Many of us go through peaks and valleys. Many of us have down times. Some of us have turned to drugs and alcohol to escape because we had life issues. We had health issues, bad families, issues in our family, depression, whatever it was that we dealt with, we had to overcome. And I know some of us look and we go, but why? But why did that happen to us? Why were we given that deck of cards? Why were we given that life? And I think that we have to look at it. And we have to look at it in one way and one way only. And that is, we chose it. I believe that we are spiritual beings that come here to learn how to love and to live on this planet. Because it's hard because we all have different skin and different bodies. It's almost like we rented different bodies and we all look different and we're all trying to fit in and we're all trying to be loved and loved, right? And so we give everybody different bodies and different outfits to deal with, and we give everybody unique qualities that can make them stand out where they feel insecure, not normal. And those things that we are given, I believe that when we go back prior to coming into this lifetime, we chose, and some of us chose some very difficult lifetimes. We chose some very heavy things to have to overcome. And we chose it for a reason. What if you realize that the more strong and strengthening of a spirit was based on the trials and tribulations, and that from the other world, with intent, we chose difficult situations to have to overcome? That makes sense. And then it's like a puzzle. We have to go through it, overcome it, solve the puzzle, and walk through it. And then and only then do we begin to figure out how to master it. This wasn't supposed to be easy, right? It wasn't supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be a lifetime journey. It's not like a Rubik's Cube where you figure it out in a few days or a few weeks, and some of you a few months, okay? It's got to be something that you keep opening and figuring out throughout a lifetime. However, the happiest humans understand and master the most important lessons early on. And that might be 30 or 40 or 50. And that's fine because that still leaves another lifetime. I believe that we were all given 2 distinct lifetimes based on our choices. And what I mean by there is I believe that any of us, if we do what's right by our bodies and by our health and by everything that we've been given, we basically have 2 lifetimes to live in this life. You know, it's interesting because I feel that many of us go through a lot of self-ridicule, self-doubt, anger. We overcome family issues and family dynamics or health issues or whatever those huge catastrophes are in our life that we have to overcome. And then we have to find self-value. And then we have to realize why we're here. But it begins with realizing that we are valuable. And the reason why we're alive is because we are valuable and we're needed. And then we begin to realize what we bring to the table that's unique and different, that other people don't have. And that when we join with other forces, we can create some amazing, amazing things. It's up to us to begin to get ourselves from the basement to the first floor, from the first floor to the second floor, with our belief and an increase in self-esteem, with our honest and unique perspective, with actually embracing those things that make us unique instead of hating on those things that make us unique. And then begin to realize, what is it that I can bring to the table? And the best and most important thing is that we're here to inspire. We're here to love one another. We're here to love ourselves. We are not alone. We are far from alone. We are all connected. And when we begin to realize that connection and begin to embrace that love, our life changes forever. The lives of those around us change forever, and the lives of those, and the lives of those, and the lives of those, and the lives of those. And eventually the world changes forever. Do yourself a service. Find those unique qualities and begin the process of not judging those qualities because they are out of judgment. When we begin to end the judgment on ourselves, we change our lives forever. We actually move in to the role we should be on, to sit on our throne, to wear our crown. And that throne and that crown are symbols of who we are in the spirit realm and who we are here as well. We no longer try to avoid the truth. We no longer try to fit in, and we allow ourselves to be. We realize that there's more to life than meets the eye. We embrace that. It's up to you to get to that rooftop deck, to put away the judgment, to put away your bag of burden, to mourn the loss that is lost, to accept what has happened, to always learn from it and not to forget, but to move on. It's up to you to rise, to find that victory pose, to accept your duty, and to get on your throne and realize the value that you have and the value that everybody in this world has too. It's up to you to see the truth, to see your truth. And once you see your truth, you see the truth of why we're here. I'm accepting a few new clients to coach to a different level in life, to coach to that rooftop deck, to help you get there solidly, to move on past your burden, past your regret, to get past that. It's time. I don't want you to feel any more regret. I want you to be able to look in the mirror and see your value, to sit on your throne, to wear that crown, to understand your value, to show others by example so they can too see their value, for you to realize your unique purpose and how those things about you that you've judged negatively about actually help you to honestly see your unique purpose. I can help you find that. Go to AshleyBurgess.com, AshleyBurgess.com. Click on that contact page. Send me an email and I will respond in 24 hours and we will start this journey together. Stay tuned because Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, be back this time in 3 shakes.